Good evening, listeners, brave navigators of the enigmatic and the concealed. Have you ever felt the pull of the unanswered, the allure of the mysteries that shroud our existence? For more than a decade, a unique comic publisher has dared to dive into these mysteries, unafraid of the secrets they might uncover. This audacious entity is Paranoid American. Welcome to the mystifying universe of the Paranoid American podcast.
Launched in the year 2012, Paranoid American has been on a mission to decipher the encrypted secrets of our world. From the unnerving enigma of MK Ultra mind control to the clandestine assemblies of secret societies. From the awe-inspiring frontiers of forbidden technology to the arcane patterns of occult symbols in our very own pop culture. They have committed to unveiling the concealed realities that lie just beneath the surface. Join us as we navigate these intricate landscapes, decoding the hidden scripts of our society and challenging the accepted perceptions of reality.
Folks, I've got a big problem on my hands. There's a company called Paranoid American making all these funny memes and comics. Now, I'm a fair guy. I believe in free speech as long as it doesn't cross the line. And if these AI-generated memes dare to make fun of me, they're crossing the line.
This is your expedition into the realm of the extraordinary, the secret, the shrouded. Come with us as we sift through the world's grand mysteries, question the standardized narratives, and brave the cryptic labyrinth of the concealed truth. So strap yourselves in, broaden your horizons, and steel yourselves for a voyage into the enigmatic heart of the Paranoid American podcast, where each story, every image, every revelation brings us one step closer to the elusive truth.
Today we got a true Renaissance man, someone that does it all. I swear. This is my homie Gary Lewis, and Gary's got a whole bunch of different projects. I'm gonna let him mention it. I'm just gonna go through, but he's got the Outdoorsman podcast. He's got a Frontier Unlimited TV show. He's got Frontiersman Roast Coffee. He's written the best book ever about fishing in Oregon, period. Like the de facto guide for fishing in Oregon, called Fish in Oregon, or Fish in Central Oregon book. And then he's got another book coming out called Born Ballistic about naughty gun things that YouTube won't let us. So we might even cut the entire Born Ballistic section out. It'll only be for the podcast and Rumble, and YouTube can just pretend that guns don't exist. So welcome to the show, Gary, one of the OG Paranoid American supporters and vice versa. You're one of my favorite people. Welcome aboard, man.
Hey, it is good to be here in your mystifying universe, Thomas.
I appreciate it. Welcome. Now we're on the level.
Yes. Okay, so when people try to ask questions like, when did you wake up, Gary? I'm embarrassed because it really was in 2020 when I woke up and I realized, I've been lied to my whole life. And
remind me, what happened in 2020? No, go ahead.
It was 2 days after a certain presidential election, and I'm laying in bed in a hunting camp in Wyoming where they didn't even let us have sheets for the beds because they were afraid that we might afflict them with something from Oregon. And of course, that was the rule that was put upon them by their own state. And so anyway, I wake up and I'm sleeping on this pillow of a whitetail buck. I actually brought it home from Wyoming because I bought it at a dollar store or a Dollar General store. And I'm sleeping under this big blanket that I bought instead of a sleeping bag. And I said, oh, shit. I've been lied to about everything my whole life. And I thought, well, why is that such a surprise? And because I grew up in a mind control religion and we threw that off when I was 21. And they told me about Santa Claus, and my grandpa, he finally says, there is no Santa Claus. And
spoiler alert for the audience out there.
Yeah, spoiler alert. And so I thought, well, why did I believe him ever again? And so anyway, And I thought, okay, I'm just going to enjoy my life to the extent that I can and surround myself with good people. And during that period of time, I was listening to podcasts because, even some of these people were lying to me, but at least they knew it and admitted it from time to time. And then I heard you, and I thought, well, here's a guy who saw problems in the world, and he said, what we need is another comic book publisher. And I thought, okay, I think I could, I like this guy. And, then eventually we go fishing together.
Yeah, the hell we did, man. We did some serious fishing together. And I just want to say that's the coolest story. You're the only person I think I've ever met that believed in Santa Claus this long. You said in 2020 you found out Santa Claus wasn't real?
No, I was 6 years
adorable.
old.
I love that. So were you in like a sleeping bag and no one was giving you sheets and everyone was wearing masks and you just wake up middle of the night and be like, oh my God, the Illuminati is real? Or like how did the descent start?
I'm just so embarrassed that I just ignored all these clues. Like I remember watching the 9/11 coverage and they said, this building has just fallen down. And I'm looking at pictures of the building and I'm thinking, no, it's standing, and then I put that out of my brain. I saw Bigfoot when I was young and I put that in a little closet in my brain and didn't access it for 29 years afterwards, and because when you see something you don't believe in, you have to do something with that. And so, all these other things. And finally, I just owned up to it. I said, okay, yeah, they lied about this, they lied about that. And I'm fine. I have made it this far. And so let's just enjoy life and try to protect the family as much as we can, save some money and live out in the country. And so, these are the things that I tried to do.
I wouldn't be embarrassed at all, man, because if you think about it, most of the people that claim that they've been woke or they've, whatever the phrase is to like waking up and just essentially not believing the government, it's kind of what it amounts to. But usually the first step is like, man, I need to get self-sufficient. I need to learn how to hunt. I need to learn how to fix all of my own things and live off the grid. But I feel like you started there. Like you already are at the point where most people that are scrambling now to figure out what happens when, the internet stops working. But you're kind of already got a few steps ahead because that was just your default position.
Right. Because grew up in the country. And then when we lived in the city, I still knew how to fish and feed myself and start a fire and live in the woods without, needing somebody else to take care of me. And so then we live now on 2.5 acres out in the country, and we have some sheep and we have some chickens and we don't eat the sheep because I feed myself from the forest. Thank you. So I don't need to eat that little guy.
He sent me, for anyone listening, but Gary sent me a picture. What am I looking at right here? Like I honestly thought this was a Disney screenshot at the first point.
This is one of the cutest little things. This is an American black belly sheep, and her name is Fancy, and she's one of several sheep that we own, and she was born in August, and she's just a cute little thing. And so sometimes people want to eat these sheep, and I'm sure they taste good, but not to me.
Like that one in particular? Like, do you have friends that come over and they start eyeing Fancy and they're like, hey man, they try to get you drunk? You hungry?
Right. That's right.
You got any mint?
That's right. Yeah, they bring a little pocket.
Are there I guess jumping into some questions, because I've got a whole bunch of different questions because I guess I'm embarrassed as well, but for the exact opposite reason. Like I've been balls deep into all this, doomer and apocalypse and Illuminati and conspiracy stuff since I was a kid. But I still, outside of like just fishing for entertainment and to pass the time and to like drink beers with friends and family, Like, I'm not out there dressing anything in the field. Like, I know that I could find a Gary, hopefully, when things go to hell. But yeah, I would just be like an absolute baby the second the AC stops working. Like after 4 hours, I'd be ready to just start killing people for the state. No questions asked. I hate to say it, but so anyways, getting to my question though, is you mentioned that like fancy's safe. No one's going to eat fancy under your watch. Now, is that all sheep? Like, do you not eat lamb?
No, I eat deer, antelope, elk, bear, salmon, steelhead, sometimes halibut. I mean, I eat wild food to the extent that I can. We still buy bacon because you can't get bacon in the wild, really.
Why is that?
Because
they're just too fit.
Wild pigs, they don't put as much fat on as domestic pigs. So, yeah. So in 1999, I told my wife, we're only going to eat wild meat after this. And in 2001, we quit going to fast food restaurants. You know, if we're out somewhere, we're done with that. And so I really had to become a successful outdoorsman in order for us to have meat in the freezer. And then there were some times where I would run out of meat in September, but that's when our hunting season started again. And then I'd get another deer, and we raised our children eating wild game and fish.
Actually, I grew up eating a lot of venison too, not because my family were hunters, but because my family were friends with a lot of hunters, and we grew up in like upstate New York, about as redneck as you could get in the state of New York, in my opinion. So like there was plenty of people that we knew that were stocked. Like I still don't know them now. Like whenever they come to Florida, they'll bring like some venison and like clockwork. So what is your metric on like will eat, won't eat? Is it just wild versus domesticated?
Oh, pretty much. Of course, if I go to a restaurant, I'm going to order what's on the menu, right? Okay, so I'm not totally off of.
You don't bring your own like carcass with you. And you're like, give this to the chef.
No, but I had a doctor one time when I was 18 years old. A doctor told me after we'd run some tests and stuff, he says, Dr. Browse, I will say his name, Dr. Browse, great man. He said, Gary, you should only eat wild game. He said, if you just eat wild game and fish, you're going to be fine in your life. And I found that to be true because if I eat too much beef, I don't feel good. And chicken is just boring, man. And I've counted it up. I've eaten well over 100 different types of wild game. I'm in Africa and New Zealand and South America and North America and Mexico and different places that I've been, and it just opens up this great experience of food that's out there that's not chicken and it's not beef and it's not pork.
They deep fry all those things.
Yeah, I mean, deep fried. I've had warthog. Probably the most dangerous thing I ever ate was warthog, medium rare. Dangerous being because there's stuff in that, things like trichinosis that you want to cook, and I'm eating around this red patch of meat, thinking, "Oh, that's the most dangerous thing that I've seen while I've been in Africa." But I survived.
Did somebody eat the red part, or did everyone eat around the red part?
Everyone was eating around the red part. Yeah, it looked good, it smelled good, but we just ate the outside.
Was that on the chef, or was that just a bunch of like American bumpkins that were too afraid?
It was on the chef. It was on the chef. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes you mess up when you're cooking. Right?
What's the most dangerous animal you've eaten? Not health wise, but like the thing that could have killed you the easiest.
Bears.
How would bear mount on the scale of all the different hundreds of different animals you've eaten?
if I have bear meat in the refrigerator, I will eat all the deer meat first.
Okay. So I guess what's the worst tasting? Is bear the worst out of all of them, or is there something that takes the cake?
Probably the three worst things I've eaten are wallaby and snipe and pigeon. What's
snipe?
Snipe is a little bird that lives on worms and snails that it eats out of the ground. It's got a really long beak. I've shot them in Africa and I've shot them in the United States.
Was that just to like know what it tasted like, or were there people like, oh man, that's snipe? Like, man, you're lucky, you've got snipe.
Oh hey, there's people, and they usually have last names like Macron, you know, who like to eat snipe. They're from the French people seem to like to eat this stuff.
But what about brains? Have you eaten lots of animal brains?
No,
not at all.
Nope, not to my knowledge.
Is that a health thing or like an ethical thing, or?
No, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah. What do you feel about hot dogs?
Oh, also don't want to do that either. But I will. I have eaten hot dogs from time to time.
What about? I mean, you already said that you don't do a lot of fast food, so I would guess a hot dog would definitely fall in that category.
Oh yeah, corn dog.
So would like the pink slime chicken nuggets from any of the big ones.
Yeah, I still remember exactly what all that stuff tastes like. I mean, quarter pounder with cheese from McDonald's. I know what that tastes like. I know what it feels like. Yeah.
So hear me out. As someone that like I think I'm assuming is like identifies with the whole eat the whole buffalo or use every part of the buffalo. I've got this theory that hot dogs and pink sludge chicken nuggets is just a 2024 version of Native Americans using every part of the buffalo. And that so many people look upon it with disdain. But is this not like truly in a very disgusting way? But is that not honoring the animal by making sure every last cell of that animal gets turned into a product somehow?
You know, we're not the only creatures on this earth that also need to eat. And so like the Blackfeet that lived up in Saskatchewan and down into Montana, their very favorite food in the springtime was the unborn calf. So when the herd of cow buffalo would rejoin with the males, because they would split up in the winter, then the Indians, the Blackfeet, they would hunt those pregnant cows, shoot the pregnant cow, take the unborn calf out, and that was the thing they would eat, and they'd leave all the rest for the wolves. And this is well documented, and it was not eating every single part of the buffalo or using every single part of the buffalo. What did get to eat all the rest of it was the wolves, the magpies, the crows, and the ravens, and the coyotes, and the mice. And because, you know, they didn't have salt, they didn't have refrigeration, they would drive herds of buffalo off of the cliffs. So I remember being in hunter education class, and they're talking about, the Native American used all the buffalo. And I would think, well, how? I mean, you can't keep that meat from spoiling after a few days. And so they would use what they could, and then let the critters have the rest of it. So that's one of these things that we've been sold our whole lives that's not true.
Are there any other sort of like commonly repeated myths about hunting or like the ethics of hunting that get repeated a lot that annoy you?
Yeah, that's the one that it probably annoys me the most. But there's other things that people say, well, my daddy told me this and my daddy told me that. You know, my daddy hung the deer for 7 days in the garage, and then he would cut the the mold off of it, and then we would take it in the house and eat it. And, you know, people still do it that way. And my daddy did this, and my daddy did that. Well, it comes down to, hey, your daddy was a dumbass. You don't have to do it like that. But you can't say that at hunting camp. You just keep your mouth shut.
Say that for the podcast when you're in the safety of your room. So, do you have a personal closest call with death when you were out on a hunt?
Yeah, man. Okay, so I really believed that if I had passed out at this one particular time, I probably would have checked out. And it was up in Canada, and we were hunting moose and wolves, and it was so cold, and we were in a tent with the black mold on the side of the tent was about waist high, thick black mold on the side of the tent. And, you know, I liked the people, I liked the food and the companionship and all that, but I was allergic apparently to this black mold. It was overpowering me. Isn't
like every human on earth allergic to black mold?
Man, you would think, but so my airwaves were closing up, and the lady was giving me aspirin, which I was allergic to. And then she says, well, here, let me give you this, which is not aspirin, but is actually made of the same thing as aspirin. And I almost died right then when I took that thing that she gave me, whatever it was. It was something that's like aspirin. And
something from my daddy.
Yeah, exactly. So
my daddy gave me this pin when he died.
Yeah. And suddenly at that point, I didn't care about killing a moose ever in my life. And I said, take me down into the town and put me in a motel room, and I'll get away from this mold, and the other guys can finish their hunt. So that's what we did. And I ate grilled cheese sandwiches and French fries, because that was all they had on the menu at the little restaurant there for a couple of days. It was like the most boring 2 days of my life, but I survived. That's probably the closest I've come. I've been charged by bears. I've been charged by rattlesnakes. You know, people think rattlesnakes. It's really funny what people say about rattlesnakes. It is hysterical, because there's people that are deathly afraid of them. There's people that have lost their limbs to rattlesnakes, and there's people that have died because of rattlesnakes, and other people think that rattlesnakes are this great totem. And I mean, here's a rattlesnake on my hat, you know, so I kind of do. I kind of think they're a totem. But man, if one's charging you, you kill that thing. So,
are there any animals outside of like taste and you know, domesticated, non-domesticated? Are there any certain animals that you would just never want to hunt for various reasons, or is like everything fair game?
It used to be that everything was fair game. I hardly hunt ducks anymore, because there's other things I want to do during duck season, but it's giraffes. I won't shoot a giraffe. Okay. And that I used to think that I would. And I hunted with a guy, and we had a giraffe come in. He was a native, forget what tribe that he was from, but Shona. He was a Shona in South Africa. And the giraffe's good luck, eh? And we see a giraffe, it's good luck. And you know, from that moment forward, this giraffe came in while we were hunting. He came in, and I mean, he was 10 feet away from us, and he was drinking. And I actually shot a warthog between the giraffe's legs. And that surprised the giraffe. But yeah, I won't shoot a giraffe.
Would that hold up even if there was like one of the have those overpopulated areas where people go to hunt like exotic animals, but I guess the loophole is that like it's overpopulated in this area, so killing it is a good thing? Or are those scams, or are those things real?
No, those things are real. Like there's way too many elephants in some parts of Southern Africa, and they really need to be culled. But yeah, if there was giraffes that needed to be culled, and my friends wanted to shoot them, that'd be fine. But nah, I'm not going to shoot one.
Is there any that you feel bad shooting, or is it all at the same level?
It's all at the same level.
Is that something that because again, this is like outside of my
no, you're asking good questions, because all of my friends struggle with the same things. I won't do this, I won't do that. My daddy said, a bear looks like a human when it's skinned, which it doesn't. That's one of the myths that really drives me crazy. People say, well, my daddy said that the bear looks like a human when it's skinned, so I don't hunt bears. Well, they don't look like a human when they're skinned. They look like a bear without skin.
How would they know what a human looks like without its skin? That's kind of creepy.
It's gross.
So are there any common, I guess, like within the hunting camps, like, like hunters don't eat this animal, like it's too sacred or it's too whatever, or is just everyone their own thing?
It's really everyone their own thing. And I encounter people who say, well, I don't hunt predators because predators are here, blah, 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 blah. And, that's fine for them, but there's a real need to shoot and to hunt predators, and it's called conservation. And we're the ultimate conservationists, and we have to manage these species because they don't manage themselves, contrary to popular opinion.
This is a really good one that came up on that exact note. That I've got another series called Occult Disney, and we watch all the old Disney movies. And when we watched Bambi, I mean, the beaten the ground trope of Bambi's mom getting killed. And so I actually did a really earnest deep dive on the guy that wrote Bambi. It's so far out of memory now, I don't remember any of the names and dates, but the guy that wrote Bambi, he actually, I believe, like went and tried to live out in the forest by himself and just wasn't cut out for it. He also tried to like train a falcon, I think, and was overfeeding the falcon so that the falcon stopped seeing him as like being necessary. It was just like, oh, I just get fed whenever. So when he actually took the falcon out to like fly, it just flew and it just never came back because it didn't see him as being the source of the food. It just saw him as like a means to it. So, but one of the things that I looked into is that after Bambi came out, there were people that were starting to be against hunting deer. They just wanted you to stop hunting deer because of this Bambi movie. And they did that. And it became incredibly apparent that the deer had almost no other natural predators, at least not enough to kill them in any serious way. And that the deer would just start eating all of the crops. And I would just like, this is where the research stopped. But I guess in a mind experiment, imagine if everyone just can please stop hunting deer. They were just like, deer are off the menu countrywide. It's illegal to hunt deer. They're too cute. There's a new Bambi movie coming out. We can't do it. But what would happen is that the deer would start to eat humans out of their vegetation. And now all of a sudden it's like the deers are kind of killing you, right? Because they keep growing, they keep expanding. They don't have any way to stop unless humans come in. So I understood that culling. And in fact, when the guy after the book came out, he did a complete 180 because he saw this like happening. And I think that they actually stopped pushing so hard on the friendly animals getting killed and making people feel bad. Like Disney as a whole stopped leaning into that because of this whole thing that happened out of the Bambi movie.
I was flying down to Florida, I think it was 2015. And I sat next to an attorney from Ocala. And I said, how do I find the real Florida as I'm coming down, to your state for basically my first time to hunt? And he thought about it for a long time. And he says, have you thought about going to Disney World? And I thought, well, I asked you a serious question and you told me I should think about going to Disney World. But when I did go to Disney World, I am looking in the forest all the time because they created that thing out of this forest and swamp, this wild country. They created this. And those animals are all still there. So I was just fascinated all the time I was there about how they deal with the bears that are still there and the alligators that are still there and the wild pigs and even down to the mosquito, which is probably the most dangerous critter God made.
Well, this is actually a really fascinating topic, the way that Disney World prevents mosquitoes from almost being present. And it's not necessarily them just spraying chemicals. Like, they actually have all sorts of botanists and experts that specifically pick the right kinds of plants that naturally repel mosquitoes. They add things into the water that repel them. I'm sure there's also all kinds of chlorine and chemicals involved in some aspects, but I mean, that was one of the things that Disney World kind of prided themselves on, is like, you won't necessarily find any mosquitoes in the parks, and if you do, like, there's something wrong with that part of the park, and someone's probably working on it. But once you get off the property, you're on your own. And there's actually a section that I can't remember what it's called, but there's like campsites that are on Disney property, so that if you go and you've got an RV or you've got like a tent and you don't want to stay in a hotel and you still want to be on Disney property, you can do that. And they've got campfires. There's actually been a number of kids that end up getting eaten by alligators out there because parents don't know. They come from, Connecticut, and they like, oh yeah, go play by the pond. Yeah, what could be bad out there? Yeah, so that's a big one.
Right. Yeah, that happened. I think just a few months after we were there, a toddler was eaten by an alligator.
There's a few. I don't know where the real Florida would be. I guess I would say go to like Lake Okeechobee or something. Right. But even then, I mean, this state has been just colonized all to hell. There's well, the next time next time I go, I'm gonna invite you and we're gonna fish Lake Okeechobee. That's already in my thought process. I'd love to. There's been a lot of debate over Lake Okeechobee for the last 10 years here. Apparently it's like turning green with algae because of some kind of like chemical runoff. It's been an interesting ride to listen to. There's also a bunch of really weird, like Florida specific hunting things. Like, for example, you can go into the Everglades and hunt python. Right. They also have like iguana hunting expeditions. Have you ever done iguana hunting?
No, but I've watched some videos on it and I've thought about it. So yeah, I would do that.
Where would that rank? Is that just like not high stakes enough, or
it's not high stakes enough for me to want to fly across the country to hunt iguana? I mean, but
what are some high stakes hunts that are still on your to-do list?
Oh, anything that is a deer hunt. I love deer hunting. And so deer hunts, elk hunts, mountain lion. Those are the things that move me. But we are going to Vietnam, and we're going to fish in Vietnam in a couple months. So
are there any mammals that you haven't hunted yet that you still want to?
Yeah. I haven't killed a mountain lion, so that's high on the list. I love bear hunting. So I've never killed a grizzly bear. So that
now let's talk about like various forms of hunting, because again, I'm a bumpkin here, so I've got friends that have done like the late night infrared, night vision goggle from the helicopter, shooting wild boars from the air and stuff. And there's also people that I know that just set traps and they just go in, they collect whatever comes out of the traps. And I know that like those two things are on far ends of the extremes within the hunting world. Some people are like anti-trap. It's like horrible. It's indiscriminate. You could catch something that you weren't hunting for. And then on the other side, it's like using technology and shooting an animal from like a mile away and they don't see it coming. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on either of those? Or is it just like, different tools for different jobs?
It's different tools for different jobs, and I probably won't be the guy in the helicopter, but I am not going to take away somebody else's excitement or conservation tool. But
is there anything off limits
for me?
Like if I had to think of like a cartoon version, right? Like throwing a hand grenade in a lake and killing all the fish and just watching them float up. I don't know if that would actually work. I assume it would probably do some damage.
I think that does work. I think
Is that valid? Like, if you saw someone doing that, would you be like, this jackass? Or is it just like, hey, that's the way they do it around here?
If it's legal, it's ethical, especially in North America, because we have thought about everything, and we have a conservation ethic that goes back to Teddy Roosevelt and his friends, but before that, the model of conservation in North America is very well thought out, and it's been working. And if it's legal here, it's ethical. Now, throwing hand grenades into a pond and collecting the fish, there might even be a conservation reason you would do that. If you have some trash fish that have taken over, the invasive species that have taken over this pond, well, yeah, hey, let's do it. That's fine. Chasing bears with dogs, super fun, super exciting. And I wanted to bring up that I was hunting in California, and it was the week that President Obama was elected, and we were in Northern California hunting black bears with dogs. And one of the most exciting hunts that I've been on, we lost a couple of dogs. And so we want to find the dogs before night falls. And so we go to the top of this ridge, and we're calling down into a canyon. And I'm looking off. We're so high up in the Sierras that I can almost imagine I can see the ocean from there. That's how far I can see above everything. But what I can actually see is the Coast Range and the fog over the Coast Range. And then Andrew, who I'm with, who owns the dogs, he's standing beside me about 10 yards away, and he's looking to the right into this canyon and up toward this notch. And he says, "Oh my God." And he was just shocked by something and frightened and scared. And the way he said it, I didn't even want to ask him, but I had to. And after a few minutes went by, he was visibly shaken. And I said, "What? Did you see a UFO?" And then he wouldn't speak to me for a couple of minutes. And he had seen a UFO while I'm standing right next to him, and I did not see it. Now I'm looking off to my left, off toward the west, and he's looking to his right, off toward the east into this little gap. And he told me when we found the dogs, and after we got back in the truck, he said that this craft came up out of the canyon, and it's spinning, it's cigar shaped, and it's spinning and lights along it. And then he said it came up, and then when it elevated, it went faster than anything he'd ever seen, and it went through a little notch in the hills. And he showed that to me, and he was stunned. He was frightened. And I'd read about UFOs for a couple of years when I was a teenager, so what he was describing to me was what I would have expected him to describe to me. And to me, it was strange, though, that he would have this experience that we're standing right next to each other. And for me, nothing happened. For him, he saw this UFO. And why did I not see it?
Did he believe in UFOs before that?
We talked about that, and I did. So I reject this notion that you don't see it if you don't believe in it, because
that's silly nonsense for children that came out in What the Bleep Do We Know and The Secret. And I don't believe it either, that the Indians didn't see the boats, essentially. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. I hear, like you and I in our circle, we hear this bandied about, but I saw Bigfoot when I didn't really believe in it. But I didn't see this UFO when I'm standing right next to Andrew. And
do you hear a lot of UFO stories?
I do. Yeah, I do. And I think we see Sasquatch and Bigfoot in the places where we see the UFO activity. Okay. And I think there's something to this manifestation idea too. I do believe that people who open themselves up are more likely to see these things than other people.
There was a really interesting resurgence of that in the 70s. Not only was there a huge uptick in UFO and Bigfoot sightings, but a lot of them together, and also lots of reports of like Bigfoot and something that had been described as like a ball lightning, which I guess you could kind of throw into the UFO department, because if it's like hovering and unidentified, it's kind of a UFO. So that kind of tracks. Like, so when you said you saw Bigfoot when you were younger and you suppressed it until much later on, like how old are we talking when you saw it?
16.
And what exactly did you see?
I saw this creature walk out from the blackberries on two legs. It's about 6'10", and it walks toward us, presents itself to us as a, I mean, I think like as a warning. Like maybe we were too close to its nest or something.
When you say present, what do you mean? Did he like whip it out?
Stood there like, hey, you guys are messing around where you shouldn't be messing around. And this was a female. Okay. And I had seen its tracks the week before, and I'd smelled it the week before. Okay. And in the same spot, because this was property that my dad owned. So I was the only one that could get back there behind the gate. And this is in Southwest Washington. So I had a friend with me, Jim, and Jim was closer to it than I was because he was walking on my right and I was on his left. I was carrying a single shot 22 and he was carrying a single shot shotgun. And its eyes were slightly red, as I remember. But something in me said, don't look into its eyes. And I would not make eye contact with it. But it was so close.
Do you think a 22 could have done anything?
No. I don't think a 30-06 would have done anything to it.
Oh, so I get the single shot shotgun, probably neither.
No. I mean, we're talking about an animal or a creature or whatever it's got to be 800. Well, I don't know. Very, very strong, big, stinky thing.
And you smelled it?
I smelled it the week before. I didn't smell it the evening we saw it.
That's interesting, because I guess that's one of the most common characteristics reported is that you'll smell if Bigfoot's in the area, but if you don't smell it when it's right up on you, that almost indicates there might be some kind of like a scent gland or like an intentional scenting process.
See, that's what I believe. And so it also, according to Jim, he believes it followed us down to our camp that night. We could have left and driven home and stayed in our own beds that night. But we had gone there to camp and we were going to camp, and it walked around our camp all night long. And I didn't really talk about this, and I still don't talk about this, but Jim and I didn't talk about this afterward. We really didn't hang out very much after that either. And he came into my booth at a sportsman show 29 years later. And he says, "Hey, Gary, you probably don't remember." And I said, "Sit down. I need to ask you some questions." Because this had been in my brain for a while. And I needed to see, did I remember it the way he remembered it? And we remembered it the exact same. And he's still a hunter. And he lives in Montana now. And he says that he'll shoot it if he sees it again. But that wasn't my takeaway. And that's not how I see things. 10 years later, I found scat, and I smelled that same smell. This was in Oregon now, in the wilderness. And I think this is the thing. In the national forests, in the wild places, and when your mind is open and you are in places that other people don't go to and maybe haven't been to in a long time, you can see things. Like my uncle, he said that he knew where he could sit on the coast, up in the Coast Range in Oregon, and he said we could watch UFOs come off the ocean any night. Any night we wanted to, we could see the UFOs coming off the ocean. And this world is so much bigger and more interesting than we've been sold in our public school education.
So I got a couple of follow-ups on some of those, because these are topics that really endlessly fascinate me too, in the same way that you see your buddy 30 years later and you're like, let's see if I'm crazy, are you crazy? Yeah. Am I crazy? Is there still a baseline here?
I was so happy to see him, because I don't know if I had asked God to bring him back into my life or whatever, but here he was walking back into my life, in that moment when I really wanted to say, "Hey, what did we see? Was I crazy? Am I crazy now?"
Maybe. But so this is where, I guess, from an outside looking in, I would just wonder, in the P.T. Barnum way, like there's got to be some capitalist out there that if they knew that there was even a slight chance that Bigfoot was real, like, let's go capture one of those things and put them on TikTok and make them dance and, make toys and kind of be the world famous person that finally has proof that Bigfoot's real, outside of like the Patterson Gimlin footage and all of the other, like the feet prints that they'll, bake into like a clay. But this is my number one thought, though, is that, well, that's Littlefoot, not Bigfoot. But if Bigfoot were real, and we live in such a capitalist society, like there has to have been someone that would have caught it and put it on TV at this point, or like, how is that not the case? And the same exact question, but if there was a place where you could go and watch UFOs take off from a lake, why not set up a freaking 24/7 feed, have that thing just stream right to Twitter, and let the internet audience like, "Oh my God, there's a UFO or there's a Bigfoot," and make it popular. The fact that neither of those have ever happened, it's either there is like the ultimate orchestration of Men in Black and government agencies that shut the feeds down. Is it that and nothing else?
No, I don't know if it's that, but there's another story that I'd like to share with you. After we talk about this. I think you're making me knock things over on my desk now. I mean, you're getting under my skin. Yeah, when we block off these huge wilderness areas and national parks, and you can't ride a horse, well, you can't do more than ride a horse, into these places, and it really keeps most of the people out. I just wonder, are these like places that we've reserved for these animals to move in and live in, But the other thing that I think needs to be considered is I believe these things are as smart as we are, or smarter.
Does that take them off the menu?
Oh, absolutely. Takes them off the menu. Yeah.
Do you feel that way about octopus?
That's a funny question. Yeah, octopus is definitely off my menu. And
Is it because of gross, or is it because of intelligence level?
It's because pig anus looks exactly like octopus.
Okay, so it's more of a taste thing, not like a morals or ethical thing. The reason I ask is because octopi are arguably have the level of intelligence as a small child, if not higher.
Right. Yeah. So I've heard that. I used to like eating octopus, and I don't now for the reasons I stated before. But now the thing about Men in Black, I mean, you brought that up, and so I was returning from an archery elk hunt. I was by myself. I'm in my Toyota 4Runner, and I'm driving up over a mountain in a mountain pass on pavement. And I see this rocket come across the sky and another rocket intersect it and an explosion. And so this is in the 90s, late 90s.
Where was this at? What state?
In Oregon. And I was certain we had been attacked, as a nation because of this rocket and then seeing a rocket explode up above me. And it was the only place where I could see something like that through the tree canopy. If I had been, a minute earlier coming up that hill, I wouldn't have even seen this thing happen because I would have been back in the tree canopy again. So I get into radio range, and I'm flicking around with my AM radio. I'm just certain the country's been attacked.
Yeah, Red Dawn.
Right. Exactly. And nothing on the radio, nothing the next morning, nothing on the news, nothing in the newspaper. And so I just kind of wrote it off as like, I saw something strange. And I don't know why something didn't show up in the news or media or whatever. And a guy that I had met, the only time I went to this one particular church, I met him, but he knew me because I'm a writer and I write articles and books, and he followed my work, and he says, I need to tell you a story. And he says, I've written it in a form of a letter, and I'm going to send it to you. So he sent it to me, this long letter that he wrote in longhand. And he saw the same thing I saw that night. And he was bow hunting, and his wife had taken off on a horse in the evening, and they were looking for his wife, him and his friends from their hunting party. And they saw this thing in the sky, and they saw the debris fall to the ground. And so then in the morning, after they had found my friend's wife, after they had found her, got her back to camp, they went looking for the wreckage, the debris that had fallen to the ground. And as they are getting close, here comes a black Suburban. And these guys said, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. And they said, well, this is the National Forest. We can be here. It's public land, and we're out here hunting. And we saw some wreckage fall down out of the sky. And they said, you didn't see anything. And they told them that enough times that they agreed they hadn't seen anything, and they turned around and left. And he said, I just needed to tell that story to somebody, Gary. And I said, well, I saw the same thing you did. And why did he pick me to tell that story to? That's so bizarre. So that there's a few other stories like that, some strangeness out here in the woods, but it always seems to be in the national forests and these wilderness areas. And it's not, those things don't happen when you're hunting on your buddy's farm.
And to back that up, I've heard a fairly compelling argument that kind of hints towards what you're implying here. But imagine if the government knows about Bigfoot and they know where the Bigfoot are living and everything the same way. And I don't know, I guess I'll ask you if this is even true, because I've seen it in like TV shows and movies, but like in Yellowstone, right? There's some sort of protected animals and they all get chipped. And the second that one of them gets shot, or it's like not migrating, and they detect like, oh, someone killed this endangered or protected animal, the rangers just like swoop in and they start this big investigation process. Who killed this? You know, is any of that real, or is that like over the top drama?
It's drama, but they can definitely do that with a wolf if they wanted to.
So I mean, potentially, then you could do that with a Bigfoot and know that if somebody makes contact with Bigfoot, or at least to keep an eye on them, and then, you know, follow them there with the black SUV and convince them they didn't see anything.
I think Bigfoot takes care of himself just fine, thank you. Really
do you now? Let's get into a little bit of woo woo here, because Bigfoot, as I've learned over the last few years, it's not just Harry and the Hendersons Bigfoot.
Right.
And I'm not just talking about having like skunk apes and like the red haired beings and all these different things. Let's just assume that though there's like races of Bigfoot, to put that one to bed. But then there's also this concept that Bigfoot is like an interdimensional being that can like shift, and a lot of these feel like they're reverse engineered to explain why no one has caught or captured anything. And well, maybe they shift in and out of existence. Maybe they know how to like actually camouflage themselves, not with, you know, leaves, but like kind of like shift their particle. I don't know what the explanation would be. Are you in on any of those? Do you give merit to any of those?
I buy in all of it.
Okay. Do you think that, how about Dogman? Have you heard about Dogman before?
Yeah. And, I know you've noticed this, that there's these divisions of people who they go down this road and they go down that road, or they're not interested in ghosts, but they're really interested in Bigfoot, and they don't want to hear about the little men that lived in Florida and Georgia because that messes with their paradigm, but they're okay to think about Bigfoot. And I think that all of these things are so much more connected than we grasp. And I think if your big thing is, you know, your hobby is looking into ghosts and those kind of things, that you're messing with maybe the same thing with Bigfoot.
All right, let's just, for the sake of a thought experiment, let's assume that Bigfoot is more or less like a bear, just like a very exotic bear that no one has seen in the wild yet. So take away the interdimensional smarter than me premise, and it's like we can kill him again. And let's assume that like other cryptids are also potentially real in the same way. Like, what would be on your top three of like hunting crypt? Let's assume Bigfoot's on there. What would be the other top three? Like, what would you go hunting in terms of like these legendary creatures that you've heard people talk about?
Hunting, that you mean to look for?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm talking about like shooting it and skinning it and dressing it and
barbecue. Not interested.
None of them. Not a single one.
Nope.
Not even like a little chupacabra.
Nope.
Why? Why is it? Is it like an ethical thing, or is it a taste thing?
It is. It is an ethical thing, because these things, I can't divorce I can't go down your thought experiment and separate myself from the potential that, you know, this is an animal or a creation kind of like me, and, you know, more like me than I would actually want to shoot. But
what about like a monkey?
Oh yeah.
You can kill them and eat a monkey?
Yeah. I've shot baboons and monkeys.
Where are you at on like the biblical scale, from like, I didn't come from no monkey to Darwin was right?
Yeah. I am a Bible believer.
Okay, so do you think that influences you at all? That like it seems like a hard line in the sand of that humans couldn't come from primates because that kind of goes against the intelligent design aspect. So does that play into the ethics of eating monkeys?
No. I mean,
So I mean, I don't know if you could play
if
this
I
thought
had to
experiment.
eat-
If you were atheist and you believed in the theory of evolution and that people really did evolve from monkeys, would you feel like you could still shoot and eat a monkey?
Yeah, I think so.
Was that no or yeah?
I think yes, I would still be able to
So
hunt and
you'd
shoot
kill
and eat a
your
monkey.
ancestor and eat your ancestor?
Yeah, yeah.
Fair point, man. I like how decisive you are.
Yeah, well, I love the thought experiments, and that was part of what I told myself when I woke up in 2020 was I want to hear what other people have to say now. I don't want to not listen to people. And you and Juan and Sam, those were some of the first people I was listening to that I heard,
Here's the crew.
Yeah,
Got a little picture of the crew. We're mean mugging.
yeah. That was the rainiest day of my life.
Me too, man. Dude, I've lived in Florida for a long time now, like more than 2 decades cumulatively. And that was one of the worst rainstorms I've ever not just seen, but like been caught in the middle of like a river essentially, right? Or like an inlet. Here's the last thing that got caught. The only thing that got caught.
Yeah, and so I wanted to point that out. You hunted that fish like a buffalo, and they're not easy to shoot with a bow and arrow. And you were the hero that day, that's for sure.
I got my Florida man credits. So if anyone ever wonders if I'm a true Florida man, here I am covered in fish blood. Look at how enamored Juan is with me here. Like I was the man. Like I was showing a beta what a true alpha looks like, and he couldn't handle it.
yeah. Well, I know that was good, clean fun, but it sure didn't last very long when that rain started.
No, it was getting fun too, man. But
yeah,
yeah. Do you have any similar experiences where like you were in the middle of like an amazing hunt and then something happened and ruined it?
Yeah, I wanted to tell you about this. Okay, but we also have to remember we brought up Teddy Roosevelt, while we were talking about Bigfoot, and Teddy Roosevelt described Bigfoot in one of his books. Okay, and people that want to argue that this thing doesn't exist, well, Teddy Roosevelt thought it did.
I know what you're talking about too. Like I don't have the name of it, but I'm working on one of my little pamphlets about like MK Ultra, and I'm like, one of them is going to be on Bigfoot, and we've got all the different big reportings of it, and that's one of them where Teddy Roosevelt, he was basically sharing stories with other people that were in like a logging camp, and they all had these stories about Bigfoot coming and messing with them when they were trying to like chop down the forest. It's a fascinating read.
Yeah, man. There's so much more to this that hasn't even been explored, this whole Bigfoot topic. But I do want to bring up another thing. I was in a cabin in Northeast Oregon, and this cabin is 17 miles from the nearest pavement. So it's a long drive on a gravel road to get there. And it's on 800 acres that belong to a friend of mine, and she let us hunt there. And I was there with my favorite hunting partner and his son. And his son is on the floor sleeping and talking in his sleep. And then James is on the bunk below me, and I'm on the top bunk. And James is snoring. The boy is down on the floor talking in his sleep, and I wake up and I'm trying to find my earplugs, which have fallen out, and I'm reaching underneath my pillow, and something reaches with 2 hands from the wall of this log cabin, reaches out and grabs me by my arm, this arm, and shakes me like that, two-handed. And I said, okay, I hear you, and I'm not afraid. I wasn't afraid when I saw Bigfoot. I'm not afraid of this thing, but it sure got my attention. And I said, I know you're there, it's cool. We were there to hunt grouse, and then I was going to come back in the 2 weeks later to hunt deer. So I didn't tell James about it. I didn't tell his son, and because we had to sleep there one more night and nothing happened the next night. 2 weeks later, I want James to arrive at the same time I do as we're going to camp so that I don't have to go in there to that cabin by myself. But he says, hey, Gary, I can't be there till 10 o'clock the next morning. I thought, oh no, I gotta get there in the dark. And so I have to drive. It's like 8 hours from where I live to this cabin. And I have to drive through these towns, and I stopped at a grocery store and I shop, and this is like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm shopping for some groceries for the week that we're going to be camped there. I didn't want to leave the grocery store because I think, man, I got to go back up into that cabin. There was no moon that night. I drive down the road, I get to the cabin, and I shut off my headlights, and it is dark. There's no electricity and there's no moon. I walk up to the front door, and I had brought some oil with me of some sort. And I just took a little bit of that oil. I put it on the door and the sign of the cross. I walked around to the back door. I put the sign of the cross on the back door. Then I walked around to the front door, and I walked in. I said, all right, I'm back. It's cool. And I went to sleep. And we never had any more experiences like that. And then I told James about it after we were done with that week. And he's the kind of guy that, he's got to see stuff to believe it. It's got to happen to him to believe it. But he believed me, because there's just things that we can't explain that are out there. This world is so much more interesting.
Do you do that now? Just out of habit? Do you just put like crosses and oil on the doors of like hotel rooms and cabins?
I should. Oh man, I stayed at the Flamingo last week in Las Vegas. I probably should have done that there.
I think it would have helped the moldy tent. Or there's certain things that even God can fix on short order.
No, the moldy tent. Yeah, I'd probably have to get away from that.
Do you have any ghost stories?
That one from the wall, that's my ghost story. That is my ghost story. Whatever it was that grabbed me from the wall. That is. Have you
heard anyone else describe something similar to that before?
Yeah. And my sister restored a house and lives in it still. They've lived in that house for 25 years, and she has regularly seen things in that house. And she only talks about it if we ask her. We have to get her to open up, and then she'll talk about it.
Do you think that bullets would work against any of these supernatural entities?
Oh, okay. Well, here's a funny one. There was an inordinate amount of Bigfoot sightings at this one particular time, maybe 15 years ago here in Oregon. And so I knew the manager of this resort that was located near there. And so I thought, could be some kid got hold of a Bigfoot costume, because those things exist. And we even bought one time. Okay.
It's like an easy way to get shot.
Yeah. And so I said, so Rick, I saw him at a sportsman show one time. I said, so Rick, is that kid still appearing in the Bigfoot costume? And he looked at me kind of funny because we'd never talked about this before. And I'm just making an assumption. And he says, his parents made him get rid of it because he got shot at 4 different times.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And so then that made me really laugh, because on the map that shows Bigfoot sightings, that kid represents a whole bunch of those sightings because he was going out to the highway, you know, and walking through the forest and showing up. But if he got shot at 4 times, he was not hit, you know, and there's a lot of hunters over the years that I've heard of that have shot at Bigfoot, and they said you know, he didn't die, you know, or whatever. Well, duh, you didn't hit him.
Yeah, I guess everyone that ever takes a shot assumes that like that was bullseye, like they're a marksman.
Right. I know. That's true. That's true. You know, I've missed deer. I've missed elk.
I've missed the paper inside of a range before. So
yep. Yeah.
You just blame it on like the barrel needs to warm up a little bit. That's
right.
The one that I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that true, by the way, on a tangent? Do you actually, does the barrel need to warm up when you're shooting a rifle?
If that is your rifle and it shoots better when it's warmed up, you need to get rid of that gun. You want a gun. Yeah. You want a gun that shoots right on the first shot. The first shot's always the most important one.
I've heard that is not the only time I've heard that. I've heard it many times when someone's a little bit off and they're just like, oh yeah, you know, it takes a few shots to warm up. And I'm just thinking like, so is the metal like malleable? Like, is it so hot that it's starting to morph? It doesn't sound like the best gun to have in the arsenal.
You either need a new gun or you need to go take some classes.
Do you have any other supernatural notes? I don't want to, because this is like this is the meat and potatoes of this stuff.
Okay, so I think we see these things because they let us see them. And I don't think we see them because we were lucky and just saw this critter that was out there. I think it wanted us to see it. If that happens. And
do you think it would be pointless to like actively try and hunt Bigfoot because of that?
I feel like if I really needed to see Bigfoot, I could, and I think I know how I would do it, but it might take
the views of that episode, man.
Pardon?
Think about the views on that episode of, Gary Lewis.
No, it wouldn't work that way.
We got him. We got him,
no,
folks.
It would not work that way. We would not see it if I brought the camera.
So that's another popular thing. Do you think that Bigfoot like can sense when you have technology on you?
Yeah. I think this thing is as smart as we are. Just it has a different life way. One of the things that I've noticed in my life is that we who are white men, and I might have some Indian in me, or they say in my family, but we don't listen to the Indians. We don't take what the Indians have seriously. But they believe in this thing called Sasquatch. The Indians around here do, in the Northwest. And they have traditions that go way back before Western Europeans were here. And I even allude to it in a book that I wrote called John Nosler Going Ballistic. And this book was published 20 years ago now. But John Nosler, up hunting in the British Columbia, in the woods in British Columbia, he hunted with Indians, and they told him about their tribe chased out a tribe of big Indians. And this I think is what they were referring to. Or maybe they were talking about giants.
Do you remember what year that was?
It was in the 30s and 40s that they told him this. But that would have happened long before, of course. It would have been hundreds of years before.
Okay, pre-colonization then.
Probably pre-colonization.
Are there any like what we were talking about, Mothman and all the other like big and small creatures out there? Is there any that you're like dead set on, like it absolutely exists, and like if you look for it, you can find it?
You know, I'm like everybody else. I don't really want to talk about Dogman, and you know, there's things, you know, chupacabras. You know, I know that other people are interested in those things. I'm not super interested, but even though I think it's all connected, but the pygmies, you know, the very, that's not the right word, but the very small people that the Indians said that they wiped out, you know, the Cherokees said that they wiped out. I'm interested in that.
Why did they wipe them out? I've heard the stories, but I have no insight or context outside of there used to be smaller people and humans just decimated them all over the world, and now they're completely gone. But like, were they stealing our stuff? Were they annoying? Were they just in competition with resources? Because like we tolerate short people now, like we call them short kings, right? Like they're fine. But I feel like there had to be something specific with the pygmies. Like maybe they bit people's ankles, or maybe they like, I don't know what it was that would cause human beings to want to eradicate them entirely.
Okay, so if people haven't heard of this before, I think we should kind of describe that they were probably, from the description, they would have been like 20 inches to like 25 inches tall. Okay. And, you know, people now are maybe more tolerant than they maybe were.
Think about the microchips those little people could have made.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. The other one is the red-haired giants. Okay. So Sarah Winnemucca was the first Shoshone Indian or Paiute Indian to learn to read and write English. And she married a white man, and she was a very sought after speaker. And she traveled all over the United States to speak and do speaking engagements. And her father was Chief Winnemucca, you know, that Winnemucca, Nevada is named after. And she said that she owned a dress that was decorated with the red-haired scalps of giants that her tribe had killed and vanquished. And this would have happened in Nevada. And apparently they sealed up a cave, and the Indians sealed up a cave that they had driven these giants into. And then they starved them and smoked them and smothered them, starved them of oxygen. And I'm fascinated by that story too, because she said she owned a dress that had the scalps of these red-haired giants.
When I hear red-haired giant, I guess I just throw that into the Bigfoot bucket. But do you think that this might be something separate from Bigfoot?
I believe it's something separate.
So we're talking about like human giants?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any giants today?
I think their DNA is here.
Do you believe in DNA?
I do.
I've heard that DNA is just theoretical too, but I guess that was.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if I believe it, because that means that anyone that's ever been convicted of DNA evidence is also just theoretically guilty. But
that's harsh.
That would be hard. So, okay, well, moving a little bit away from the supernatural stuff, because we're going to get back into it, because we're going to do a little segment where I ask you how much you believe in certain paranormal topics.
Great.
I've got two other, I guess, hunting, foraging, eating kind of questions, and I feel like I can assume the answer, but I just want to ask you outright. So the first one is that, would you hunt and or eat cloned animals?
Oh man.
Like Dolly the sheep, but imagine Dolly the sheep was Dolly the bear.
Wow, what a concept. I guess I would.
Now, what about lab grown bear?
Oh, gross. Would I eat lab grown bear? No, absolutely not. I wouldn't eat lab grown anything. I hope. Probably have
What
already.
if all the bears became extinct? Like some horrible thing happened, they all died off, no more bears ever, except we've got this way that we can lab grow bear meat, and it is legit bear meat. Let's say you get one of your friends is like, I got drunk and they talked me into it, and I had a bear burger, and it's bear, dude. It tastes just like bear. Would you still be like, nope,
Nope.
So okay, so there's some boundaries. So now I'm curious, at what point, if ever, would like factory farming be acceptable? Like let's say that we're overrun by deer, they keep eating everyone's food and their plants, and there's not enough hunters to keep up with it. So they just derive a way that the deer, like, I don't know, they run themselves into a little assembly line, and it does the whole process, the bolt in the head, and it packages in it, and it separates it and everything.
Yeah.
Like, are you on board with that in any context, or is that like a complete no-no as well?
No, if it's still that high quality food, then I'd still be interested in eating it.
So let's say just a typical factory farm, cows and chickens and pigs and all of that.
Raising deer.
Same thing. As long as the meat is quality, do you think that everything else is fine? Like legal is ethical?
Yeah.
And then just to pry at that one a little bit, because my thing is I poke at things until they break.
No, I know.
So like, is it legal to shoot? I don't know. Let's say like to shoot a deer intentionally, like Terminator style, like take out all the kneecaps and then like shoot it in the shoulders and then like shoot it in the ass a few times, essentially like torturing the deer by shooting it in a bunch of non-lethal ways. I assume if you're like just a really bad shot, that's not illegal, right?
Right.
Is it illegal if you do that intentionally?
Yes.
Do you think that there's a real difference between those two?
Yeah.
So what is that difference?
One is a sadistic intent to make the animal suffer, and that's one of the things we've got really good at as hunters is keeping the animals from suffering. That's what we're really good at these days. And we use more accurate rifles, and we use higher quality bullets than our grandfathers did. And these books that I've written called Born Ballistic and Going Ballistic describe the process in how those bullets were improved. And we're actually, I have seen the hunting evolve from when I was young to now. The way people do things is way different than the way they did it when I was young. In a deer hunting situation, if a deer was seen, everybody would shoot at it back in the old days. And it might get hit 3 or 4 or 5, 6 times. Now one person sits and shoots at it while everybody else watches, and they'll shoot. It's usually a one-shot kill. The animal doesn't suffer. Usually, we've become more ethical as hunters. So, and our laws get at that. Our hunting laws promote better ethics, better game management.
I like that. Yeah. And it's interesting how much the intent drives some of that like legality and ethics. Because and an extreme example that makes no good point whatsoever, but if there's 2 people shooting at their own deers and the guy on the left knows what he's doing and he's intentionally missing, but he only intentionally misses 3 shots and then he takes the animal out, versus there's like some new hunter that doesn't know what the hell they're doing and they shoot the thing like 20 times and it's suffering and then they take it out. Like, technically on paper, the guy that made the animal suffer the most is still more ethical than the one that had it suffer the least, just because the intent was different. But I guess from the outside looking in, if the first guy just lied, like all you have to do is lie, right? And just be like, oh no, the first three, I don't know what was going on. But deep down he was like, yeah, I'm a sadistic asshole. I'm doing this. Yeah. I don't know if those people are out there. I feel like if you were a sadistic asshole, I guess take it out on hunting animals that you then eat would be better.
We kind of sort that out as hunters through hunter education classes. And
how so?
Almost every state requires hunter education. And so as a 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old, you go and you sit and you listen to these old guys and more experienced hunters tell you, what good hunting is and what ethical hunting is. And they don't really teach you how to hunt. They teach you how to be an ethical hunter. And that stuff really takes hold. And you begin to see your place as a conservationist in this larger framework. When you're 10, 11, 12, you're kind of a nasty creature.
You must. How did you know? Have you talked to my parents?
Yeah, well, I knew a lot of people, that were like me when I was young. But you sense, oh, I'm part of a culture that takes this seriously and treats these animals with respect. And that really is one of the byproducts of our North American model of wildlife conservation.
Are there any like faux pas that hunters can do, like new hunters, and you're like, this asshole hasn't learned not to do this thing yet?
Yes. Yeah. So if you go bird hunting with somebody and you both have the same amount of time and money invested, and a pheasant flies up in front of you and your buddy shoots it, that's a faux pas. And if you both shoot at the same bird because it flies up and the bird is in the safe shooting zone between the two of you, and your buddy says, that one's mine, and then the next one happens and he says, that one's mine, I got that one, and then he's claimed all the birds that the two of you shot together. These
is more like a high score thing, or is this like he wants the meat?
He wants the bragging rights. Is what he wants. Yeah, I killed, 10 birds today. Well, no, you didn't. You were hunting with your buddy and you claimed 10 birds. And so those are the people that we don't hunt with again. And then they wonder why I didn't get invited back.
There's someone listening that's like, oh man, that's what it was. That's why Gary hasn't invited me again.
And then there's people that walk around with the safeties off, on their guns or their hammer back, you can talk to them about it. And if they say, well, this is just the way I do it. Well, yeah, you can do it by yourself then, because I don't want to be with you.
I know a lot of people that are very hardcore about never having the safety on, because it's like, what's the point? Like, I have this thing to do this. It's weird. It's weird how like there's certain like lines in the sand that people have on how to handle certain things.
So some of that is really in your own brain, right? And then some of it is you're endangering your buddy. And we have lots of different kinds of guns, and some of them are perfectly safe without having a safety. Like,
is this a no Glock scenario?
Well, I'm talking like a 38 special, a 5-shot revolver.
Okay, yeah, even better example, yeah.
It's not going to go off if you don't pull the trigger. And it doesn't need a safety because the safety's in your brain. So that's, what I'm talking about.
So I've got a little segment we're about to jump into, but I've got one question that's worth more than just a 1 to 10 rating. And we've already predetermined a secret signal that Gary will motion at me if he doesn't want to answer. So he'll be like, I don't know, but he's also going to make a little you won't see it if you're watching, and you won't hear it if you're listening, but I'll know if Gary does it. Have you ever been invited to or heard of a real existence of a most dangerous game sort of hunting organization? Do you know what I mean by the most dangerous game?
Okay, I've not been invited. I believe that exists. I don't think anybody in my circle, the people that I know, I don't think, but I think that exists at some level.
What do you think the draw is for that?
I can only speculate that these are, if such a thing exists, that these are people who have everything they want in life, but they don't have a certain kind of thrill they think that they're looking for.
Where do you get that thrill? Like, let's say that you don't do the dangerous game. We're not claiming that Gary does the most dangerous game. What's the most thrilling version of like I don't know, what really gets your adrenaline pumping out of all the different types of huntings and activities you do? Is it sleeping in a tent with black mold?
I love steelhead fishing.
Really? That's what is it about? I guess, again, as a bumpkin outsider, but I would assume that if you're not like shooting at an animal that could potentially rush you and decimate you, the rest of it's just kind of like laid back. So what is it about steelhead fishing that gives you an adrenaline rush?
These fish, it's a rainbow trout that goes to the ocean and comes back 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years later, and it's just supercharged with the power of the ocean. And it might be 50 miles or 200 miles to get back to its home water. And now it's 6 or 7 or 9 or 10 pounds and is just going to fight to the death. And getting one on the end of your line, they call it the fish of 1,000 casts. And I hate to refer to it that way, but it's hard. And to me, as a young person, it was kind of a rite of passage to catch a steelhead. And I've never lost the thrill of that. So steelhead fishing, deer hunting, bear hunting, these are my favorite things.
Is there laws or ethics around like shooting a steelhead fish with a 22 or setting up like a net and
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Are those either of those legal or are those both illegal?
No, that if you were found to be doing that, you would go to jail.
Really? What about if you're on your own land?
Jail.
Really? What if you've got your own 2 acres and you and I guess steelhead wouldn't work because they go out to the ocean, but like let's say that you've got your own pond and you stock it, like is there something you can do there that would send you to jail?
The steelhead, they could come up the creek or the river that is next to your property.
And that would also be jail?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that just about shooting fish at all? Are you allowed to shoot any kind of fish?
You can shoot carp, and
why do they just have better lawyers? Do the steelhead have?
Yeah, they do. They got lawyers and they got judges for sure.
What is it? Like, what is it about a carp that you can shoot a carp and you can't shoot a steelhead?
In America, carp are an invasive species.
Okay, so if there needed to be culling with steelhead, then it magically becomes legal and therefore ethical?
Yeah.
Would you have any qualms about shooting a steelhead with a 22?
Yeah.
If it was legal?
I would not do it.
Is it because it's like cheating?
Yeah.
What if you did 1,000 casts and it's just not not catching and you're hungry?
There's a way that you can catch these fish. It's called snagging. And snagging is illegal, and you can make it look like you're really fishing, but you actually caught the fish by snagging it. It didn't actually bite.
What's snagging?
Snagging is where you drag the hook along the fish's body, and the fish might be 10 or 15 yards away from you, and you can see it in the river, and you cast because the rivers are clear. And then you drag the hook and you snag it in the side or the tail or whatever. And And
this is interesting to me because this also sounds like something like an inexperienced novice could do accidentally. Could you find yourself in jail from doing that, or would
if
they
you're
be
doing
like,
it intentionally? If you're doing it intentionally, you could find yourself in jail.
It sounds like there's so many loopholes for hunters that might also be like really good liars and just be, no, it was an accident.
Yeah.
I guess after like the 20th one that day, then they'll be like, all right, bud.
Yeah.
What like if you're in a group and someone's like snagging fish left and right, like what does everyone else call them out? Like, hey, get out of here with that crap. Or
we call them out. Yep. We call them out.
How often does that happen?
It used to happen quite a bit. Of course, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And so it used to happen quite a bit back in those decades. But people have been called out enough and learned enough that doesn't happen as much anymore. But snagging is still legal in some places in Alaska, and is considered perfectly ethical in those instances. It does take some skill.
It sounds harder, honestly, than just doing the normal way. Like it almost feels like you would need more skill.
There's a place called Seward, Alaska, and you can snag salmon off the beaches there, and it takes a level of skill. It really does.
Are there any forms of hunting fish from helicopters, or does that not exist?
I don't think people are doing that, but
or shark or anything.
I've hunted carp with bow and arrow. I've hunted carp with arrow guns, and the arrow guns, that's pretty cool. And you can put a little laser on your arrow gun and
can you use that with steelhead, or is that off limits for steelhead?
You could, but it would be off limits.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Is it so you're just not allowed to shoot steelhead with anything? You have to catch them with a hook in the mouth.
In the mouth, yeah.
Stop.
Right.
You can't even like net them. Can you like scoop them up with a net? Is that also cheating?
Indians can scoop them up with a net.
So if you are part of a protected class, you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
There's another version of fishing that I've heard of before where Indians or Native Americans, but they put like some sort of a drug in the water and it causes the fish to like get knocked out and they just float up to the surface. Is that real?
I've heard of that, and I believe that is real, but I don't remember what that is now. But it's some plant, right?
Yeah, it's like some kind of a powder that they make out of just the natural flora and fauna, and it knocks the fish out. I don't think it kills them. I think it like stupefies them, or like it's almost like a narcotic to fish.
Yep.
So it's the only reason I bring that up. I think that's another thing that like you're not allowed to do that unless you have some sort of a link to like the cultural heritage that your ancestors did this. But if you just like fly in from, again, Connecticut, I don't know why I keep focusing on Connecticut, but you fly in and you just like start drugging fish. Apparently that's illegal and unethical.
There's a lot of shady people in Connecticut, I guess.
Absolutely. All right, let's just jump into this next section. We can keep going on stuff, but I want to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Hey, conspiracy buffs, I double dare you to take some PCP, the Paranormal Conspiracy Probe. On your marks, get set, and go!
All right, the rules are pretty easy. You've got one of the best shirts I've ever seen, by the way, my friend. The rules are 1 to 10. You're just going to rate it. If it's a 1, then you don't believe it at all. If it's a 10, then you absolutely believe it. So let's just say Bigfoot, since we've already talked about that. 1 to 10, where are you at on Bigfoot?
10.
Let's talk about flat Earth for a second, because you mentioned standing on the top of like some kind of a peak, and you almost thought you could see the ocean.
Yeah, I could see Paris or
a flat model. So where are we at?
Man, I don't know. So I guess I'm around a 5. I'm around 5. I'll put a 5 on that.
That's fair. What about demons?
10.
What about angels?
10.
What about dinosaurs? Like T-Rex in a museum?
Well, if it's T-Rex, it's a 0. Obviously. I mean, paleontologists will admit there was no such creature. I mean, look at those things. How could they have even bred with each other? They can't have sex. How could there be more than two? T-Rex would be 0, but dinosaurs, I think they were big lizards, man. So I'm gonna say, yeah, 5. Let's say, yeah, there's something there. But I'm fascinated by this topic though, because some of my friends say, no, there's no dinosaurs. And then other people, you know, they're all in on dinosaurs. So, and let's give me a 6 on that.
What about dragons? And I mean fire-breathing, flying dragons.
Um,
And they could have existed at any point in history.
Yeah.
They don't have to exist today.
7.
What about like full-blown aliens? The little gray ones with the big black eyes in particular.
Jeez. Man. I don't. This brings up another story that we don't have time for, but let's put me down at like a 3 on that, because you know aliens could be coming from somewhere other than what the standard narrative is.
This isn't me, but I feel like mold might be alien. I think mushrooms might be alien, in that it's so ubiquitous now that no one would ever even consider it as being alien. But
interesting.
That's its own theory.
Okay.
What about time travel?
I'm open to that. So let's say put me down as a 6.
What about 9/11? Where are you at on 9/11? You said you just recently woke up, but I'm sure you've heard of all the different theories, or at least a handful. So official story, 9/11's 1 to 10.
1.
Let's go down the list on a whole bunch of these. Oklahoma City.
Jeez. 1.
Waco, Texas. And I guess to be specific, that they accidentally set fire. They didn't need to.
1. I mean,
what about Ruby Ridge, Randy Weaver? They didn't know that they shot Vicky.
They did what they intended to do there. So that's a 1.
Where are you at on 1 to 10 as any of the 3-letter agencies being to like protect America? How safe do you feel from any of them? DEA, ATF, CIA, FBI? Fill it out.
I think there's we got to put a number on it, right? Yeah. I think they're there to protect themselves. And this one thing I learned working on my last book. These agencies, they exist to protect themselves, and even the clubs that we form, that's what we're protecting our own, our own clubs. So yeah, put me at a 5 on that, because there's great people in those organizations, and I think there's black darkness in those organizations too.
1 to 10 that the government could actually take away Americans' guns if they really wanted to.
They could not.
So is this a 1 they could not? Is it a 3 they could not?
They could certainly try, but they would not be able to. There's too many.
So what? Give it a 1?
Yeah.
And then I guess I have to ask this one too. We landed on the moon, and let's just make it broad. Let's say that a human being has stepped foot on the moon in the last 100 years.
1.
Let's talk about some of those ones, and then we'll let you go. But I want to start with the moon landing. Why are you at a 1 and not a 3 and not a 5 on stepping foot on the moon?
And this goes back to my earlier embarrassment, because when I first saw those videos, I thought, well, how can they be having that phone call when they can't make a phone call across the country without having these big gaps in talking, and I'd heard my mom talk to my aunt, in another country, and this huge gap in conversation, but they can talk to each other when somebody's on the moon. No, that's not real.
Well, they had a better phone plan.
They had a better phone plan. So that was one thing. Then I looked at the craft that they said they landed on the moon on, and it looked like something I would have made as a 10-year-old, and that doesn't compute. But then I talked myself into believing it because everybody else believed it. And then, that day I woke up in 2020, I thought, man, I got to go look at that again, and I don't want to. But part of growing up is thinking for yourself, and what they showed us from a trip to the moon just doesn't make sense to me.
I like what you said there of I felt like I should look into it again, but I didn't want to, or some people, they just don't want to. And I wonder, let's say that you can prove to someone that we never went to the moon, right? And they were a diehard believer their whole life, or you could at least get them to like feeling like it's a 1 or a 2, even without proof. You just enough evidence, they get there. How does that help somebody in the long run? That yesterday I believed we went to the moon, and now today, after talking with Gary and Paranoid American, I think that it's all lies and fake. Like what positive impact do you think that makes on somebody for the rest of their life?
I don't know if it does make a positive impact on somebody.
Do you think it's better to just not say anything and just let them believe that we're on the moon if it doesn't positively impact them?
Why should I argue with somebody about something that's probably not going to change their life for the better? If they want to believe in Santa Claus, then I'm probably going to let them, unless they're my grandchildren. I'm not going to let my grandchildren believe in Santa Claus if it's up to me. But
you made it all the way to what, like late 30s, 40s until you found out about Santa Claus?
No, I was 6 when I found out about Santa Claus. But
how did that happen? Did you catch mommy and Santa Claus, or did you overhear something?
No, I think my grandpa finally said, "Hey, there is no Santa Claus, Gary."
At 6, he was like, "Grow up."
Yeah, and so I did the same thing with my grandkids, and they would look at me like, "Don't talk to me," And I thought, "Isn't this interesting?" But they came to know. But
you tried telling them, and they didn't believe you.
Right. Because
did you get in trouble with the parents?
No, because I did it on my own time.
Okay. I mean, still, like Grandpa said, Santa's not real. I feel like that would warrant an angry call at some point.
Well, I didn't let my kids believe in Santa Claus, but my daughter, fostered
at all.
That.
Like even from day one?
At all. No, we never. Because I didn't want to be a person who lied to my children. So I wasn't going to lie about that.
That's an interesting take, man. That's actually one that I find endlessly fascinating, because the two, if I can only pick 2 out of the endless arguments, but one is like, let them enjoy this magic and this, like, let them still live in a world where like fantasy is still kind of possible in their head, versus like, no, I'm not going to lie to them. And I guess some people would say, well, it's not lying if it's, like instilling this magical of childhood, or, throw the penny in the fountain and make a wish, or any of those sorts of magical thinking things. But I think, me personally, and, if my parents are listening, no ill will towards you, but I feel like that first moment when a kid finds out for themselves, like, wait a minute, grandma's in on it, grandpa's in on it, mom and dad, all my teachers are in on it, everyone is in on it. But I don't know, in my mind, I almost am thankful for that, because that was like, okay, people can lie to you, and you really can believe something for in my case, I think I was about 20 something when I found out Santa Claus wasn't real. So for 2 full decades, it's crazy how long people can keep this up. And there's also this like unspoken rule of like, you don't say it out in public. We can say it here because I got licensed from the Santa Claus board before we started, but you're not supposed to go out.
You pay a lot of money for that.
And just like where all the kids are lined up to get the picture. And if you just be like, hey, this guy's not real, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of the ultimate faux pas in a way, even though it's, you know, stop lying to your children.
Well, you know, I think there's so much magic in the world. We don't need to make up this other thing.
I like that, man. I'll actually leave it on that. If you can tell people where to find you, all your different projects that you've got going on, where to buy the books, where to see the show, when to tune into the podcast. Cool. You know, what's your favorite flavor of your coffee? Tell us all.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm drinking Frontier Roast, and that's the coffee. And you can get that on the website, GaryLewisOutdoors.com. The Instagram is Gary Lewis Outdoors, and I seldom go to Facebook. So if you send me a message there, it'll just probably stay there. Not get answered for a long time.
I'm the same way.
And the books, the Fish in Central Oregon book is one of the projects I'm proudest of, and you can get that on the website. You can get it at Amazon. And this is my latest book. It's called Bob Nosler, Born Ballistic. And the television show is called Frontier Unlimited. And we're on cable and broadcast affiliates around the country. We're in the Russian language in 18 Russian-speaking countries. And then easy way to watch is on huntchannel.tv. Click up huntchannel.tv, click on shows, click on Frontier Unlimited. And if you can't remember Frontier Unlimited, it's FU. FU, Frontier Unlimited.
You can't remember it, FU. Stands for Frontier Unlimited. That's cool. You're in Russia now. Do you have like a Russian audience that reaches out to you?
No. We were contacted by a streaming company when streaming was a new thing from Russia. And I thought, okay, this looks like a joke or a scam or something, but I'll walk down the road with it a little ways, you know, maybe it's kind of like believing in Santa Claus. And they actually, I had to file a paper with the Russian government and a tax form with them, and I eventually got a check, and they got 13 of our episodes. And we couldn't.
You heard it here. Gary Lewis is an agent of the Russian state. He is paid by the Russian state to create propaganda. That's awesome.
This was during a time of capitalism. So I think it was actually a Russian private company that paid me.
The best time are the times of capitalism.
So when, you know, I sent a note to you the first time and I ordered some of your books, you know, your comic books, and I got, you know, you gave me this t-shirt, I think, right? And I thought, you know, I liked comic books when I was young, and I think it's pretty cool what you do and being a comic book publisher. It's kind of like a cry for help, right?
Oh, very much so. Please, maybe if I make it funny, maybe now you'll listen to it. If it's not doom and gloom, that very much is where it came from.
But anyway, you know, you more than anybody else, your brand has become your name. It's not like, oh, I know Thomas. No, it's like, I know Paranoid American.
I leaned into that. It's fun. It's interesting because people would just start calling me Paranoid as like my first name, but
right.
I like it, and I feel like that's the best branding possible.
And your last name is American. I mean,
it just worked out. Yeah, it's on my birth certificate.
Yeah, I'm kind of my company is Gary Lewis Outdoors, you know, and so people will say, "Well, here's Gary Lewis Outdoors," but you took it a whole nother level with Paranoid American. But
have you considered changing your last name to Outdoors?
I've thought about it, yeah. But I wear this when I go to 4th of July celebrations. That's what I wear on July 4th.
It is the ultimate conversation starter. And once we get the Bigfoot pamphlets in, I'll send you a whole freaking box of them that you can just pass out to everyone at the campfires.
That MK Ultra, that little tract that you made.
I usually have one within like arm's reach, but I might not today.
Yeah, that's
please tell me how good it is. Tell everyone how good it is.
It's a really important little tool. Very quickly, somebody gets up to speed with what that was all about. And anyway, good job on that. I still have a stack. I haven't given them all out.
You got to be selective.
But, yeah.
I appreciate that, Gary.
Yeah.
I would love to collaborate on one with you on something. I don't know what the topic would be yet. Maybe it's just fishing in Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of magic there, man.
So this was awesome. We ran really late. Usually these are wrapped up in like 90 minutes. We could keep going, but we're going to save some for the top. And whenever we go on the next hunting expedition, we'll get lots more images and video. Here's a quick little shout out. The original crew. There I am showing Juan how to be a true alpha. He hasn't figured it out yet, but we'll get him there. And thanks, Gary, for inviting us on that trip and giving us that opportunity to show the world how alpha I am. I appreciate that.
Well, we'll do it again. All
right, y'all. I don't know what I'm gonna pick. I've got so many commercials I can lead out with now. We're gonna do the class. We'll do a chosen Juan since we just showed Juan's face. Again, here he is being an absolute beta. He didn't catch any fish at all. I did. But he's got a comment.
Chosen1.com. Go visit chosen1.com. It's easy to remember if you just sing along. Chosen1.com. Go visit chosen1.com. The chosen one. Yes, he is the chosen one. He's got his own comic, and now he's got his own song. 'Cause he's the chosen one. Yes, he is the chosen one. Go buy a copy at chosen1.com. Chosen1.com. Go visit chosen1.com. It's easy to remember if you just sing along. Chosen1.com. Go visit chosen1.com.